It's a challenging time to be a teacher. We don't get paid a lot, the days can be long and exhausting, demands from students, parents, admins, and districts can be intense. There's always room for improvement and there is always more to do. There are always new procedures to learn, new programs to run, new strategies to master. But it's when our fire burns the lowest that we remember our purpose. We teach because we're resilient. We teach because we're problem solvers. We teach because investing in kids is one of the highest callings we can imagine. We teach because we know that the classroom can be a place of magic and possibility. We teach because we have an unquenchable fire for learning and a passion to share it. We teach because our colleagues are some of the best human beings we will ever meet. We teach because we have an opportunity to influence the global citizens that will make this world a better place. If you're still on fire for learning and growth, join the Teachers on Fire Roundtable for conversations that will warm your heart, spark your thinking, and ignite your practice. You'll hear from real people and real educators with real solutions, not make-believe perfection, but ideas, inspiration, and a path toward change and transformation in K-12 education today. My name is Tim Cavey. I'm an 8th grade teacher, assistant principal, and the host of the Teachers on Fire podcast. I'm inviting you to join us at the Teachers on Fire Roundtable. Because you matter, your voice is important, and we are all better together. Good morning, Teachers on Fire. As you just saw there, my name is Tim Cavey. I'm an 8th grade teacher, assistant principal, and the host of the Teachers on Fire podcast. Thank you for joining us today for another conversation that will warm your heart, spark your thinking, and ignite your professional practice. We are gathered today to talk about reimagining professional development, a topic I'm really excited to get into. And Jenna Kemp is here on Facebook. Thanks for joining us, Jenna, pardon me. She says, good morning. Looking forward to the discussion today. Julie is here as well. Good morning, Julie. Well, as we get in, I'm going to ask all of you to introduce yourselves. Tell us a little bit about your context in education, and we'll keep these nice and brief. But Mina, let's start with you.
Hi, my name is Mina. I teach 6th grade language arts history in a class of ELT.
Thanks for joining us, Mina. And Mark.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mark Ryan. I'm a specialist educator and a specialist leader at Raha International School here in Abu Dhabi. It's an IB school. And happy to be here, founder of #RunArantPLN.
Kate.
Hey, good morning. Kate Stevens here, coming to you live from Northern Colorado. I am currently at a all-virtual program in Poudre School District, but before that, I'm from Global Academy, which is a hybrid school for about 10 years. So thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. And Jeffrey.
Hi, Jeffrey E. Frieden here from Inland Southern California, high school English teacher, pretty much mainly my gig. And I'm starting to get back into the website blogging type content creation. So coming up shortly here.
All right, stay tuned for that URL at the end of the show. And Vince.
Hi, everybody. My name is Vince. I'm here in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. I'm curriculum consultant by day, and then by night, I am an author as well as a consultant for Corwin Press.
Thank you, all of you, for being here. We bring so many ideas, and I know just from the tweet where I sort of threw out this idea on Twitter, there is a lot of interest in this space. So I hope we will be joined by a few more educators as well, both live and on the replay and on the podcast. So listeners who are tuned in on the podcast, thank you for that. I want to start off with this question. We're going to start with the positive. What was one feature of some of the best professional development that you've ever experienced? Vince, I'll go back to you with this one. Talk briefly about some really good Pro-D.
So some of the professional development, some of the most impactful professional development I find, both as a participant and a facilitator, would be that professional development that exists beyond the kind of one and done event. So a systematic approach to professional learning that involves teachers in the process, and one in which we can measure our growth, measure the impact we have on our students, and always kind of keeping evaluative thinking at the forepoint or at the focus point of what we're doing. So that's where I see our most impactful professional learning.
All right. And Jeffrey, talk about one of your great Pro-D memories.
Well, I have a lot, but I guess the feature, I locked onto the word feature, what you said there. And the word feature, like what came to mind for me was stuff that I got to choose. When I get to choose, most of the time when I attend a one size fits all, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's mediocre, sometimes it's something else. And I usually try to take away something from any kind of professional development I attend, whether it's something I choose to attend or it's something that I am compelled to attend. But anytime I've had the choice in the matter, that's where I've seen the most growth and development in myself. And that's largely come about through book reading, blog reading, and a lot through Twitter, interacting with people like all of us here. Hey, Tim, I think you muted.
I was just saying I'm getting some messages that my mic is no longer working, so I'm also muted. That's great. Okay, let's keep it going. Kate, over to you, and I'll try to figure out my technical issues over here. Go ahead.
So as a high school language arts teacher, being with your people and being in your content, I think is one of the things that really fills my bucket. So for me, the best PD feature has to be community and connection and gathering together and getting to know people from different buildings and different contexts. That has to be like just one of the best features of powerful PD and coming together in common purpose and sharing and connecting. So whether that is Twitter or whether it's an in-person thing, community and community building, that's what I want to be a part of. And then as an instructional coach, what I want to create for people who come to my PD.
Mark.
Yeah, I have to echo, and I hate echoing what everyone says because I feel, okay, say something authentic here in the moment, but it's about those facilitators that can read the room. They can take their what, but actually look at how and why and how that's going to impact the people who are there and how they can, get that teacher voice and then allow for that to transition into student voice later. So to echo what everyone said there, community and being able to read the room. So it's about the people. So that's been the most, the people who can read the room the best can facilitate the best PD, in my opinion.
All right. And a couple of comments here from Erica. She says, our best PD are choose your own adventure taught by colleagues. And we will get to the in-house Pro D offerings here in a moment. Erica also says the best PD now is teacher self-care. I taught virtual yoga and went to Tai Chi. Yes, and maybe that's something that we didn't really program into our discussion today, but thinking about options for those in-person Pro D events that actually tend to teacher wellness. Mina, what about you? What is one of your positive Pro D memories, and what's one feature that stands out?
Well, I like how Mark was talking about how the PDs explain the why and how behind the lessons or behind the strategies. But as a sixth grade teacher, I want something that I can take to my room right away, the next day, without much prep. Because if it's a PD that I really can use, I'm thinking like, how is this going to work in my room with my sixth graders, with my ELD students? So if somebody gives me that that kind of strategy, I can take it to my room and use it the next day.
That makes a lot of sense, and it sort of touches on an inner debate that I've had within myself about do I want to hear some philosophy and some inspiring keynote-ish kind of content? Does that belong in professional development? I think there is a place for it, but Mina, I think you're right. We also want those practical, applicable strategies as well. Let's move into the third question. And this will be a two-parter, by the way, but the first angle I want to approach this on here is this phrase. We've all heard it. This meeting could have been an email. So what are some asynchronous tools and strategies that might make professional learning more efficient and valuable? Mina, I'll go back to you. When you think about adjusting or converting, let's say, professional development into asynchronous places, where does your mind go?
I think one of the people who are watching this mentioned choose your own adventure. So that's a great idea. And I like how Jeff mentioned he goes through Twitter and then looks at, reads people's comments. And when there was a professional development offered on Twitter, I signed up for it because it was something that I was interested in it. So something that in specific topic is not just all language arts, but language arts for sixth grade or middle school students who who are struggling readers or who are language learners, those topics I'm interested. So it has to be tailored to what I'm looking for in my classroom.
That makes a lot of sense as well. I'm getting a message from my computer that my microphone is back. Am I sounding a little better now? Hopefully. Okay. All right. We're back online. Mark, maybe.
I don't know if you ever really sound that great, but I'm not talking about the microphone, I guess. But keep going.
Microphone can't save me. Mark, when you think about delivering professional development asynchronously, I mean, my bias is podcasting. Obviously, I'm a huge podcast booster. That was the focus of my thesis. Where does your mind go in terms of allowing teachers to sort of take their professional development on demand?
My mind goes to tech right away. It goes to the ability to facilitate and to support educators with tech. And that's been huge during this shift here with the pandemic. We're not all arriving at the same place, but yet schools are pushing different tech in different ways in their buildings that have to happen. And so if there's things that have to happen and training that needs to happen, then with tech, you can place all of those strategies, Loom videos, YouTube links, blogs about what is happening in different places. So the teachers that need an access point can find the correct one, and others can then sit in something that could have been just a meeting for someone else, or an email, we should probably say.
Yeah. Kate, what about you? Asynchronous, delivery of professional development. Where does your mind go on that?
I immediately think about how can we help teachers have on-demand resources. So in my context, I like to provide playlist. I like to provide choose your own adventure, and then really protect our live time for things that really get the most meaningful experience out of live synchronous time. You know, and something that I really like to see in terms of like anonymous feedback from teachers is when they tell me like, oh, you don't waste our time. And I'm always trying to tease out what that is, but I think it's just that it's on demand. It's, you know, if they have 30 or 20 minutes during their plan period and can queue up a quick mini lesson or work on some professional development, whatever that is. And just kind of comes back to trusting teachers as professionals, that so many teachers know what they want to learn. We just need to protect their time and going and learning it.
I love that expression of protecting teacher time. I think as a part-time administrator, that's something that I try to keep on the forefront constantly. Jeffrey, what about you? I know we've got a second part that we want to touch on, but in terms of asynchronous delivery, what do you think schools and districts need to do more of right now?
Well, I'm going to take a little bit of what everybody has shared so far and see if I can roll it together in something that I participated in when the pandemic started. Or I should say when the stay-at-home order started last year. So about a year ago, I was in a Voxer book club. And so what that meant was it has all those elements we were talking about. It had community, but it was also asynchronous. But it was also timely too. So it was like, hey, within this range of time, we're going to read this chapter, these two chapters. And then here's a question I'm going to put on Voxer, and we'll talk about it and have an asynchronous conversation. So it took the time element out of, or I guess the spatial element out, where we all needed to meet together at the same time and synchronously, and allowed us to still have a very natural flowing conversation, even though it might have been a day after somebody made a post. And there's plenty of tools out there like that where you could do that. You could do it with a Flipgrid, or like Loom was mentioned. So there's a lot of different ways where you could do that, but you could still have that community aspect be a part of an asynchronous professional development. So that's something I think districts could look in. Those tools are free and available, and it just takes somebody getting it started.
I like Voxer, Jeffrey. As you know, I think Voxer is still kind of a tough sell. You know, people give you a look like, Voxer, what are you talking about? And and really, I mean, I think you mentioned this, but there are other tools that accomplish the same things. I'm kind of waiting for a mention of a couple of other tools. We'll see if Vince touches on them. Vince, what comes to your mind? Asynchronous Pro D.
I think the statement that this meeting could have been an email is such a true statement, especially right now during all of the districts that are still learning from a distance or still teaching from home. For me, one of the aspects that I take away is from a colleague of mine, Peter DeWitt, in which when he was a principal, he would flip his staff meetings. So he would actually record himself, and then he would post the recording of the meeting, and then he would use the synchronous time together to have a conversation. And it's no different than how we're approaching, or we should be approaching, teaching in our classroom, in that, there are aspects of our teaching that can be learned asynchronously. So whether we use Flipgrid, that's what we use a lot in my district. But specifically having the information dissemination done asynchronously and then opening up the synchronous time, should that be necessary, for conversations with your staff. For me, that's kind of the way I'm envisioning some of my professional learning sessions would be. I would almost sandwich my sessions with asynchronous. So the first session would be asynchronous, and then the middle session would be a synchronous collaborative experience. And then we would end with some sort of asynchronous, debrief, using whether we use Voxer, whether we use Flipgrid or anything like that. That's kind of how I would see leveraging those asynchronous tools.
You went right into kind of where I want to head next, Vince. So hold those thoughts. Andrea is saying flip and use the live time to build community and learn from each other. Julie says, love making choice boards for teachers to choose PD, and lots of other great comments. So welcome, Scott, Erica, Andrea, and others. Thank you for contributing to our discussion. Yes, and I'm curious to know if other schools and districts are using Google Classroom. I'm using that with my team, and that facilitates some good asynchronous kind of on teacher time, or when it's comfortable for them kind of activities as well. So you're, like I said, Vince, you're touching on sort of the related question, which is this: how can asynchronous tools redefine faculty meeting times? So we're not doing the administrivia and frankly announcements, right? And we're putting that on the side, and we're using that rich, valuable time for that internal professional development. So Vince, maybe I will push you a little bit on the, if we move some of that administrivia kind of stuff to asynchronous tools, how can we keep teachers accountable? Or let's just put ourselves in the feet of that administrator who is worried that their teachers are maybe missing some things.
I think there needs to be an element of professional trust, for sure, with your teachers. Mm-hmm. Our teachers are professionals. And oftentimes when we are asked to go to a meeting and teachers are just going to sit and get, we're not getting that active participation that we're looking for. It's very much compliance based. I find that, and I agree with Erica's comment right there, I find that there is so much expertise within our staff that if we can use a video delivery system to share the information and pose some reflection questions, and then in order to participate in that synchronous meeting, you would have to kind of reflect on those questions. So for me, it's less about how can I make sure my teachers are getting it, and more about how can I leverage teacher voice to make more of a grassroots change within my staff.
Yeah, we're seeing some comments on this idea of flipping it. I think you mentioned that as well. Lisa says we use choice boards, but I absolutely love the idea of flipping the meeting. So there are a couple of different things going on there. One is flipping in terms of preloading teachers with professional development content before they come to the professional development session, which is kind of the way we talk about flipping the classroom for our students. But then the other one, I don't want to lose sight of, just finding ways to share those information bullets with teachers asynchronously as well. Jeffrey, this question really came to you. And by the way, this entire conversation was really provoked by Jeffrey. So thank you to you for that. What would you add to this question about creating more valuable time in-house using asynchronous tools?
Yeah, so I guess I think of it philosophically speaking, if we're going to get all of the faculty into a room, or maybe use the choice boards to get them in separate rooms, but we're going to get people together for professional development, how can we increase the value of that time together? And that would mean offloading some of those things that take up the time. I like the word you chose, administrivia. But sometimes it's a little bit more important than administrivia. I know there's really important meetings where it's very important for our administration or front office to make sure that the faculty has the same understanding about something, like a high stakes test that's coming up that the whole campus is going to participate in. There's an affidavit that we have to sign that we all understand our roles. And so I get that those things need to be delivered, and they need to ensure that everyone has a common understanding. So I know that we've talked about this. I guess one particular way we could do something like that, use a video app that has some questions kind of loaded throughout, just to make sure that you're tracking everyone's understanding and you can see that everyone can do that. That would be one way to sort of move that time and set it aside where people can do it on their own. There's accountability. Everyone can have the same understanding so that when we do come together, we can do that important work where we're actually developing one another and growing and learning. So that's how I see that really helping out in those cases.
Both Jeffrey and I were talking about a tool called Edpuzzle. Just by nodding your heads, are all of you familiar with that one? So Edpuzzle tracks viewing progress, and it can also sort of force the answering of brief questions. And I've used that tool a couple of times with my own team, but a thought I've just wondered is that really dignifying the profession? I think Vince used language like that. And so that's something I'd like to keep in mind as well. Kate, how else can we protect teacher time and create more in-house time for Prody?
Definitely. So 2 things that we've been using and that I've helped coordinate at my site this year that have been really simple and something you can use tomorrow. The first was just a running Google Doc that has become our in-house morning announcements for staff. And at the top of it, it has ongoing important dates. We have standardized testing coming up in the United States and in Colorado. So we have these dates that people need to be aware of. And then at the top of every, part of the page is the most recent announcements and just things that people need to be aware of and things that we want to keep on people's, forefront. And something else that I've been doing for PD is rather than like a Google Classroom is I've made a Google site that's become the house of all of our content and updates and resources and what staff need to be taken care of if they're doing that PD class for credit. So I think, going back to your question about does that dignify teachers, like I had to kind of quiet an inner eye roll. Like if my administrator gave me an Edpuzzle to go through and answer questions, that, it would probably irritate me a little bit. But I understand that like I need you to sign off on this. I need to make sure you saw this. So I think blending those 2 options and, for me, if I'm teaching PD and I'm giving instructions, I kind of do that mental check. Can I do this in 4 or 5 bullet points so teachers can come in and read it really quickly? Or is that going to end up being 400 or 500 words? Great. I'm just going to record a quick video. And then if staff needs to talk to me about it, I try and have an open office hour or a chance they can reach out and get back to me. So it's transparency, it's communication, it's clarity. Something that we always say in our household is clarity is kindness. And I think that's an incredibly important when an administrator or, a teacher leader is communicating with their teams. There's a lot of low tech ways we can do that.
Wow, you made some great points there. Thinking about your inner eye roll, and I still, I'm interested in that. I think teachers are already on a Google Classroom, again, in my context, maybe in others as well. So maybe all they need to do is hit done. And can we just have some professional trust that I watched the video, okay? You don't need to check Edpuzzle to make sure I watched at least 85% or something. Mark, your thoughts on this?
I think my thoughts come down to 3 words. It needs to be human, it needs to be easy, and it needs to be Padlet. Okay, no, it doesn't need to be Padlet. I'm not selling it for them, but just kind of an idea that came to me. It has and Padlet is one of those places where you can store a lot of that content that maybe people need to watch or they need to digest before they come and do the PD. So that in the PD, you can have those human moments. You can actually connect with people, hear questions, and see it kind of just develop. And if something's there, you can refer to them back. Oh, yeah, I put something in the Padlet for that, or I will put something in the Padlet later. And I'll stop saying the word Padlet now. But it's a place for, easy access. So it needs to be human and it needs to be easy.
You don't have to stop using the word Padlet with me, Mark. I actually got back into the tool. I finally bought a premium account and used it it's Poetry Month. So I invited all staff to share their favorite poem. And I was just amazed by how many features they are adding over there. So it's got to be in the top 5 of asynchronous tools. If you haven't checked it out, take a look at Padlet. Mina, we've shared a lot of ideas. Anything to add on this question of creating more in-house time where we can actually learn together instead of talking about announcements?
I'm going to say Padlet one more time. Before the meeting, before this live show, I was sharing that I'm one of those teachers who kind of hide in the corner during staff meeting, and I don't ask any questions. I just hope that somebody else will ask that question I'm wondering. But if we put if you utilize Padlet, it can bring out teachers who are kind of shy and we're kind of internal thinkers and have them kind of post questions and look at everyone else's answers or even answer some of the questions that are posted. I think it's going to build that community even stronger, because it's not just for students. Teachers can use that Padlet to voice their concerns, ask more questions, and build a community.
So good. Yeah, there's so many ways that we can use that tool, and I'm just thinking, as long as everyone signs in and actually IDs themselves, the anonymous posts drive me crazy. But I want to know who's posting what. That's where I'm coming from on that. I want to shift gears over into another word that you see come up in this conversation around professional development, and that is gamification. Gamification. So it's sort of all the rage in some quarters of education. Does it belong in professional development? Can points, badges, or competitions improve engagement, motivation, and learning for professionals? Mina, I'll go back to you. Would that kind of thing motivate you?
So our district started this asynchronous PD program, and I was really excited because although I'm quiet and shy, I am competitive. So when I went to that site, it was really interesting. It had weekly winners. It had the weekly best schools. It had points, and you could earn certain badges. And it had lots of topics too. It was not just classroom related topics. It had habit strategy topics. There's classroom engagement and things like that. So we had lots of topics. Excuse me. But then when I started working on them, my competitive side came up, and I was working on things that was easy to do. So instead of learning new things, I was looking through the topics and, I already have that. I'm just gonna screenshot it and post this. I can earn some points. I have that. It was defeating the purpose of doing PD. It was horrible. So once I got to a certain point, I stopped doing it, because the ones that I wanted to do, it takes more time. It's more time consuming. So I kind of put it off, like, I'm going to do that later. I just want to earn some points, and I want my name up there. So it defeats the purpose. So I think the gamification, when it comes to PD, it got the playing part right. You want to be competitive, you want to play. But it forgot the playing together part. It forgot to allow teachers to collaborate, because I was writing these things and I was responding to questions, and this is what I found, this is what I think, but there was no way for me to see what other teachers were posting. It was just for me and whoever was checking and giving me points. So it just got rid of that collaboration part. So that's how I think.
That is so interesting. So it was very vertical. It was very one-to-one in a sense. And we think about that in the classroom, right? We want to get away from that. And so there wasn't a whole lot of collaborative learning going on. And Mina, you figured out how to game the system. I love that.
I did, but I wasn't learning anything.
But yeah, it gives you that opportunity to stay in the comfort zone. And sometimes we know as professionals, we need to be pushed out of the comfort zone. Mark, on gamification in professional development.
All right, so I'm putting Padlet on the side, and I'm putting EMC2 learning right out front. So gamification, you know what? It's a great way to read the room. It's a great way to build a hook, energizers, get to know the people that are in the PD and get things going. But it needs to be short and sweet. It can't be Monopoly. So move on from that. And David in the comments, who likes to win all the time, dude, you are a winner. You don't need gamification to be a winner. So that's how it is. Short and sweet.
All right. I was waiting for a little more on EMC squared learning, because I know nothing about that, but I've been seeing it around lately.
Yeah, an amazing, amazing platform for educators to build gamification into their lessons, really engage the students and find interesting ways for them to create student voice in a meaningful way. I had them on my podcast before. Check them out. I'll try to throw their Twitter links in here in a second, or after this chat. But EMC2 Learning is an amazing space for teachers, built by teachers, for students. So there you go. And I don't even work for them or Padlet. What's going on here?
Well, I'm signing up for the Mark Ryan workshop on EMC squared. Kate, gamification, yay or nay?
No. Next question. No, just kidding. So I so appreciate Mina's, personal experience, and I want to come back to that. And I think it's so easy as educators and being in education, we are always on the hunt for like, what is going to work? What is going to engage my students and my team? How is this going to be, fun? And so when I read that question, I kind of like want to answer a question with a question, what's the purpose of gamification? Are you seeing low engagement? Are you trying to make something more fun? Are you trying to build community? And I just wonder if there's a better way to do that than gamification, and to Mina's experience, where you start focusing on the leaderboard and that really starts to be a deficit model almost of like, don't be in the bottom 10 instead of an asset model, right? So for me, that could be to another point, right? A nice hook, a good way to start something. But I personally wouldn't design a PD with, the crux of gamification as the backbone of it.
Some great comments here from the audience. Jenna says, spot on, Mina, collaboration. Erica says, should be team driven. Julie adds, you learn problem solving, teachable moment. Thank you for that, Kate. Jeffrey, what would you add to this gamification area? Interested or no?
For the learning part, absolutely not. I'm not interested. But when it comes to the collaboration and coming together, which I know that's something that we're all valuing here, I can see a place for it where I don't want to say the word icebreaker, but it could be a way to get people to sort of come together and start just tossing some ideas around, have a silly little competition to start things. I shouldn't say silly. It could be very meaningful, but it's also very low stakes. It's not going to have any impact or effect on your learning. I'm familiar with the experience that Mina had, but before I actually found, I didn't let my competitive side come out when it came to that. I was like going through and I was like, okay, I want to click on this one. And once I could see who else was participating in that, and full disclosure, Mina and I work for the same district, but I could see everyone else like who had competed in there or who had done their achievement. They submitted their achievement. And I was like, oh, I want to like interact with them. And the way that it was set up, I couldn't interact with anybody. I could just see kind of the points that they'd earned and the points that I'd earned. And I felt an aversion come up where I was like, I don't really want to do this. All the PD that I've done so far in my life that's been really meaningful has been me choosing to join in, me interacting with people. And that's what I wanted to do. Even if it's asynchronous, I would like some sort of interaction. I like what Vince has said about the asynchronous to start, synchronous for a little while, and then asynchronous debrief afterward. That resonates with me. And so I want to keep the games to a minimum if they have to be there, or toss them out altogether.
Maybe that's something we need to say with these asynchronous tools in general, is that there has to be a synchronous, debrief element involved. And otherwise it's just all these individual races and we're all on different pages and we're not learning from each other. We're not leveraging the expression, and it's escaping me, but the smartest person in the room is all of us, or something to that effect. I murdered that, but you get the idea. Vince, your thoughts on gamification?
I'm happy that I went last because I've kind of been flipping and flopping about gamification. I haven't used gamification specifically in my professional learning sessions. And I can see as previously mentioned, I can see the strengths in it when it's low stakes. However, what I tend to do is we have pre-established success criteria for our professional learning sessions. So if it's a delivered professional learning session, I tend to have the success criteria pre-established. If I'm working with groups of teachers in a more in a smaller environment, then they would create their success criteria. And then rather than gamifying our way through the learning, because as Mina mentioned, you're just kind of looking to finish rather than looking to learn when you do that. We just revisit our success criteria at the end of our professional learning time together, whether that's one session or three sessions apart. And then we just reflect on our own goals and success criteria. So one of the ways that I've, gamified, I guess you could say, that method is to do a Mentimeter at the beginning of our professional learning session. And then the Mentimeter again at the end, exact same confidence indicators on our success criteria, and then have the participants reflect on the change, because there's generally always at least moderate growth in the understanding of those or in the application of those success criteria. So short answer, not a big gamification fan. Long answer, there are some strengths in it if it can be low stakes, as long as it's really applicable to the professional learning.
Thank you. That was well said. My own bias, I think, would be not a big fan, kind of skeptical. Haven't experienced it, but I can't see myself being too motivated by, being on the blue team or, a superhero badge or whatever you might put in front of me. I think it takes away somehow from the dignity of the profession. But that's my own bias. Maybe I need to be sold on that. If you are watching live or on the replay, go ahead and tag me on a great example of gamified professional learning. Mark, did you want to add something there?
I was just going to say, I think we still need to be aware that, learning at all levels, even as teachers, needs to be fun, right? People are going into PD and they have to learn something. But if you have someone, a really passionate facilitator who can create a game, to kind of hook people in and kind of create an atmosphere or a mood to get to know you and build relationships, can be super powerful. And I've seen John Meehan from EMC2 Learning do that a million times. Check out his Twitter handle, Meehan, EDU.
That's right. Yeah, I think he wrote Adrenaline Rush, if I remember correctly. So John Meehan. All right. So moving this along, this discussion is so fun for me. My mind is just exploding, but let's move into in-house. So we've talked about how to create more time for these in-house opportunities. We won't spend too much energy there, but how can, let's get into the how. How do we actually deliver this and bring this about? The idea of ed camps is something I've seen once practically in my own context. I'm interested in doing more of that. Do you schedule different teachers to speak? Do you create some longer conferences? How would you go about this? Vince, your thoughts on bringing out the expertise that we know is in our own buildings?
This year, more than ever, I'm learning firsthand. It's hard to be a prophet in your own village sometimes. So,
Yeah.
People get tired of hearing me speak. And so one of the ways that I've leveraged against that is generally, when we put on a professional learning session or we have an idea for a professional learning session, we always have those early adopters or those teachers who will take the ideas and run with it. As soon as we find those, I tend to kind of tap them on the shoulder and ask them to share their expertise. Because oftentimes, as mentioned multiple times over the course of our conversation, we have some fantastic experts within our own districts, within our own schools, classrooms, and we need to leverage those and make sure that their voices are heard, because I'm just one person with one opinion and one professional learning maybe lens as I deliver the session. But having more teachers engage and interact with what I'm saying and running with it, it moves mountains. It does more for the professional learning session than I could ever do on my own, regardless of how great of a session I planned. It falls almost completely apart if I don't have in-house examples to share.
Speaking of in-house, Lisa just says, I attended my first ed camp right before the COVID shutdown. Absolutely loved it. It would be awesome to do in-house. And yes, I'm giving it, again, 2 thumbs up on that. And a lot of comments following Mark's comments about fun. A lot of people agreeing, yeah, it needs to be fun so people feel energized. Jeffrey, how can we deliver and better leverage the in-house expertise that we know we all have?
Yeah, I was going to say, I heard a lot of what Vince is saying. I've heard that too. Sometimes you have to drive 50 miles in order for people to listen to you. I've heard that before. But I do think that there are ways to connect within the district. So I'm thinking of my district. It's a medium-sized district in California. And we've attempted this in the past where we had people traveling to different sites. And so it was a choice board like that. People would sign up and they would actually go to different sites. They gave us time to do that. It was pretty incredible opportunity. But it was all in the room, asynchronous, you had to attend. I'm seeing now, first of all, the very first thing that any district or any organization would have to do is ask. They need to start asking and looking for their teachers. I don't know to what extent some organizations are even thinking about that, but ask your teachers, maybe not ask who wants to teach this, but hey, who would be a good person to teach this to, or to run a professional development on this. And then now I'm developing a lot of skill with hybrid. I mean, I could have a live studio audience with people in the room, but I could also broadcast to other areas of the district, so that would reduce travel time too. So there's that option.
That's interesting. Even the platform that we're on right now, I mean, districts could be using this kind of, an interactive platform to do more of that. I wanted to come back to a quick comment Erica made about paying teachers. I thought that was really interesting. Teachers get paid if they present. If schools have those professional learning budgets set up to bring in speakers or to, Corwin events, Vince, speaking of Corwin, I know I feel like charges $300 to $400 a day for some events. Why not use some of that money to compensate our own teachers? I think that would be pretty motivating. Kate, what would you add to this conversation about in-house?
I've always loved the expression that like the answers are in the room or the answers are in the building. And I think going back to protecting teacher time, giving teachers time to connect and share, asking teachers, I've been blown away this year because I'm in a new site with new people and then our school is closing. So we're opening a virtual program and closing a virtual program in response to COVID this year. So I've kind of gotten to meet a little bit of a dream team of educators from all over my district that I would never have connected with had we not, upstarted this program this year in our community. But, I got to work with a 25-year veteran educator who's phenomenal and no one has asked her to share, and just checking in with her and saying, I would love for you to share what you're doing with our entire staff, or, hey, on our in-service workday, instead of people listening to me again, let's tag in teachers from all different content areas, and have breakout rooms virtually so that people can come and go and we can record those sessions and post them. So there's so much from this last year that, practice-wise, we can take with us into the future, and that many programs and many PD offerings have been doing for a long time. Asynchronous offerings, video recordings. Something I'm really excited that we're doing in our building right now is this Vault page where we're inviting all of our staff to share something they have created this year on this Vault, which is a Google Doc that everybody can just take and leave with and come back and check in later. So it's about, building time and space. It's about inviting people to share and just looking around and asking, like, who can I give this mic to? Who would be a good person for our staff to hear from? And elevating some of those voices that maybe, either haven't had the opportunity or just simply haven't been asked.
It's a two-sided coin because I think administrators are asking that question of who can I ask to share, who can I tap? And then there are the teachers you've got on your team like the Erica Sandstroms, who I know is joining us today, who have a ton of creativity and a ton of ideas to share, and they just want those opportunities. So somehow we have to bring those together. Mark, in-house, your thoughts, and what does it look like in your context? I'd be curious to hear.
All right, so here's how it works. Number one, with the idea of getting paid, that's the only reason any of us are here right now for this podcast. So that's number one. Everybody's got to get paid at all times. No, but seriously, to go to Kate's point, are the answers in the building? I don't think so, but the questions are. And if you can run a PD that's actually answering the questions of your staff and empowering them, that's when you put the staff to do the PD after, in my opinion. So you bring people, you empower them, you actually collectively learn something as a group, especially from my perspective as a specialist leader for arts and music. So we come together and we learn something, we get behind something, and then we digest it. We take time to think, how can we bring this to the homeroom teachers? How can we become the facilitators to our colleagues? So that's how I like to do it, is you bring someone in to answer the questions. And then you get people jazzed and you give it some time, because everybody hates that person who just did something in PD and then runs to tell you what you need to do next. But, when things settle down a little bit and you're able to find time and they can actually teach you and make more relationships within the school that you're in, super powerful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sounds great. Mina, in-house, what have you seen that works well?
When you said in-house, I was really thinking in-house. So I was thinking about just school in-house.
Gotcha.
So I learned most when I was a student teacher by watching my master teacher, just seeing her in her element, interacting with her students, how she played out the whole lesson so smoothly. So I was thinking, how can we make this happen right now? And it's so easy because most of us are in some sort of Google Classroom. So we can use our prep time and go visit a teacher who's willing to share and just watch her teach with her students. And when there's something comes up, and you can see the teacher react to it or respond to it. And not just come to my Google Classroom for the whole session, but if it's specific enough. I'm going to do my breakout session for 30 minutes from 10:30 to 11. Come and see if you want to see it happen. I'm going to do my writer workshop for an hour. Come and see if you want to see happen. And I've done this with when I was teaching summer session, and it was so powerful because the feedback that I got from teachers allowed me to see what the students might be feeling but not voicing. Oh, this link didn't work. This happened, that happened. So the feedback that I got as a host teacher was very valuable as well.
What has been your experience, everyone? When I think about Mina's comments, she is right on that we don't get enough opportunities to see the teacher next door in action, which I know sort of raises some red flags for some teachers. But I think if there's a mutual, if that's happening both ways with teachers who work together and trust each other, I think that can be incredibly powerful. Have any of you experienced that really positively? All right, I see a lot of heads nodding. So that's something that, I mean, I've been teaching for 20 years. I can count on one hand the number of times I've ever had a chance to do it myself, to actually sit in a colleague's classroom as a teacher. I get to do a little bit of it as an administrator now, but I still want to learn from the teachers on my team. They are incredible. Mark, did you want to add something on that?
Well, I was going to say, just, that's been my entire experience at Roha International School here in Abu Dhabi. So my teaching partner, Lise Farquhar, who also teaches the visual arts, at one point, we just ended up sharing all the grades. So we teach visual arts from grade 2 all the way to grade 5. And we would just split all the classes, and people would see us constantly having a dialogue, even mid-class, mid-session, sending students into her room, into my space, depending on our strengths and our weaknesses. So when you actually get to know the people next door, that can be the biggest PD. And we all kind of know that. But the beauty with that is if you can make it visible and you can allow people to see it, your other colleagues, that you're actually having that relationship, then ideas start to form. And actually just before COVID, the idea was to break down all the rooms of the visual arts space and just have artists, all art students everywhere. And they would just have 2 teachers basically running the same lesson, but with different opportunities for the students to have more student voice. So yeah, collaboration is key, and the best PD, of course, is in the hallways, right? I know that could be on a t-shirt somewhere, but that's true.
Yeah, Mina, right on. I'm just thinking about, I'm still stuck on the idea of, when you get a chance to sit in a colleague's class that has some of the same students, you get to see how they manage some of those behavior issues even, which is really interesting and eye-opening too. And Mark? Oh, unmute Mark? Sorry.
Oh, it's the only time that you can get me to stop talking. So to go to Mina's point, is the idea that she could be so structured to have that time that actually respected her colleagues, to say, come into this moment and you'll be able to see this. I think is so amazing. So hats off to you for doing that, because I wouldn't be able to tell you when to come into my classroom because it's just a mess. But that's amazing. Good job.
Hey, I wanted to jump in there. Can I jump in?
Yeah, go for it, Jeffrey.
So what comes to mind with all of this is all wonderful. And like you said, Tim, there's been a time where I've participated in a lesson study, and I can count on one hand how many times that's happened. And it was really powerful when it did. When I think about the challenges that might be there for going into one another's rooms, I know I've worked in environments in the past where people have been very skeptical about who is coming in their room and why. So if it was something that was structured, it could be intimidating depending on that. But last year, maybe it was a year and a half ago, I saw on Twitter the observe me hashtag, where people were posting a sign on their door that was saying like, hey, observe me. And if you don't mind coming in for a little time during class and then leaving me a little bit of feedback, here's my email about what you saw. And then they just would put that out there and kind of send out a blast, email blast or messaging blast to their faculty saying, why don't you come on in for a few minutes? Let me know what you're seeing. And so if you can do that, if we can get to that space where we believe that it's really helpful for people to come in and take a look at what we're doing, we can actually open ourselves up to that. And then that might actually create a culture over time. So just depending on your context and your situation and the level of trust, it might just have to start with individuals saying, come on in, let me know. And then if anyone else is doing something cool, I'd love to come see it.
Scott on YouTube says, we love the instructional rounds of visiting other teachers' classrooms. Again, validation and sharing the in-house wealth. Talk about trust. There's a great phrase connected to what we're talking about. I think a walk and learn, or there's a better name that's escaping me right now. Kate, you wanted to jump in a moment ago. Did you want to add here?
I did, and Scott took the words out of my mouth in the chat around instructional rounds, and what a powerful piece of learning that has been for me. And then as Jeffrey was talking, I was thinking about the work that leaders and building administrators need to do to make that trust happen and to make that safe and to really communicate the purpose around rounds is professional learning and partnership with your peers. Because I think there, depending on the leadership or the culture that's in that building, that could be a really intimidating process, or it could feel like you're being not observed, but assessed. And someone in there, on the clipboard checking off, oh, I didn't see your learning target. And, really just coming together and deciding what's the purpose of this, who's leading this, and what a great opportunity to boost teacher leaders in your building. If you have kind of that small group that gets really excited about that work and let them run with it and let them structure it. If you're in a building where like maybe that trust isn't quite there yet, or your administrator thinking like, oh, my teachers would never do that. Really powerful, reflective opportunity, I think, to bring those teachers in and think about that.
Yeah, we do want that peer feedback. That shouldn't be too much of a strange idea, hopefully.
No,
Mark?
hopefully not. Hungry for feedback.
Yeah.
I think just to piggyback on Jeff's idea, if you want to welcome in and have PD in your classroom, just actually putting a visual. Again, I think visuals are key in our schools. So, you can send out an email, blast email. I think that's also another idea. But in now this day and age where everything is coming at us through our devices, when you are back in the school, if you are face to face, if you can have that visual on your door. I remember it was like a red light, green light thing that people were doing on Twitter around the same time, and letting them know this is a safe space to come in. I feel comfortable, and this is where you can stay within the classroom. That lets me know that you're here for that purpose and not for something else. So making it visual for people too can help in that, facilitate that PD. So Jeff, awesome.
Just one last thought on that. When I think about popping into different classrooms, I was telling Jeffrey, I'm trying to compile a growing Google Slides archive of just pictures and illustrations and ideas, and I'm calling it As Seen in Our Middle School, just to build that archive of great ideas and practices that other teachers are doing. Just because we can't all get into each other's classrooms, we do have some space and time limitations, obviously. But again, saving and storing, collecting, aggregating those ideas that we know are living and happening. Vince?
I just wanted to add quickly something that we haven't mentioned. In our district, a lot of our administrators, our assistant principals, do a little bit of teaching themselves. And if you are in a building where you have teacher leaders who are kind of in the classroom as well as facilitating professional learning, that's a great place to start, right? So if we're trying to encourage the culture shift to have more observations, very informal observations, obviously, it should also, be started by some of the leadership in the building. So I just wanted to add that. I don't know if it was mentioned at all.
Yeah, for sure. All right, as we start to wrap up, we want to hear from you. Do you have a project on the go? Have you recently completed something that you'd like to share with the listeners? You've obviously got a passion in this area. Vince, I'll start it back with you. Tell us about what you've got going on or something you've recently finished that you'd like to share.
Yeah, thanks. So I recently was fortunate enough to collaborate with some great thought leaders in publishing 2 books. I have them here, so this is a shameless plug for sure. So the first one's called The Assessment Playbook for Distance and Blended Learning, which was written by Doug Fisher, Nancy Fry, myself, and John Hattie. And then most recently is this one, which was my passion project called Great Teaching by Design, also with the same author team, and just kind of focusing on leveraging some of the teachings in Great Teaching by Design, and also taking that into starting my doctorate at Western University in September, which my focus will be on teacher induction. So some exciting stuff happening for sure.
A lot happening there. And you said at Western, right? Is that in Ontario? Okay.
That's correct, yeah.
Online. All right. Jeffrey, what have you been working on? You mentioned at the top, you kind of teased us with a mention of more blog posts coming out. What's that going to look like?
Yeah, first of all, I just want to say thanks for letting me follow Vince with writing 2 books with Hattie in the title. So yeah, I'm going to be firing up the blog again. And I guess the major task for me right now is really just to make it through the year. It's in the name, Sir Thrive. Like, I'm just trying to make it through and get a little bit better by the end of the year. And I'm being reflective. I shared something recently on Twitter last night about the hyper rubric I've been working on, which was kind of inspired or tipped off or got sparked by you, to use your term there. I got fired up about that. So check that out on my Twitter if you're interested in like how to do have your students self-assess and then do the hyper rubric and just kind of track their own learning.
I took a look at that. It looks amazing. Kate, what about you?
So I've got a couple things cooking. I'm going to be continuing some partnership I've been doing with PBS NewsHour Extra, which is kind of their classroom wing of their journalism programs and sharing lessons with teachers. And then something else I'm working on right now is I'm really passionate about teacher coalition and community. So I'm kind of exploring an idea of getting teachers together who are really passionate about anti-bias, anti-racism work, but maybe aren't sure where to start. And elevating, inclusive identities and marginalized members of our educator community to help boost their voices and sharing their work and their expertise.
Sounds great. And Mark.
All right. So my idea is if you are out there trying to build your own professional development, link it to something in your community outside of your school. Find the passion that links to what you're doing in your classroom and make partnerships. And I'll shout out what I've been working on lately, pretty proud of it, working with the Louvre here in Abu Dhabi on working with their exhibitions and a lot of their great collections, and then finding a way that allows students within the UAE and also worldwide to put their own voice into what they see there. And it's happened. I did it for 2 weeks during spring break. We just finished up, and that was probably one of the most amazing partnerships of my life. So there we go. Find what links with you and go outside of your school. Make it happen. You got to do it yourself, but I highly recommend it. So go for it.
It's a great message, Mark. And do you want to say a little bit more about the sped up chat?
I'll say it really quickly because it's sped up chat. Tomorrow it follows pretty much the same timing. It's an hour later on Sundays with my teaching partner, Lise Farfar. We just have people on, education leaders, people who are enthusiastic about a different profession. We're just there for a friendly chat and to see what's going on in the week and in the world of education and in general. It's a fun 35 minutes, and I hope you can join it. You can check it on my Run Educator or hashtag sped up chat, hashtag run and rant. Run around and then say whatever you want afterwards, kind of in the name for Run and Rant.
And Mina, no pressure to have a book on the go or anything of the sort, but have you got anything you'd like to share with us?
No, it's just like Jeffrey said, I'm trying to wrap up this year and planning for next year. I'm looking into gamification of lessons, not focus so much on the points, but giving them timely feedback so students know exactly where they are and how they can improve themselves.
That sounds really good as well. And I'm going to turn it right back to you, Mina. Let us know how we can contact you. We see your Twitter handle there. Is there anywhere else that we should be reaching out to find you?
That's about it. It's just that I'm on Twitter.
Hey, that's a great first step. It's really the best one I can think of. Mark, how can we connect with you?
If you'd like to, it's a hashtag Run and Rant. And so once in a while, you can see me running around in the middle of Abu Dhabi and then talking some nonsense, kind of out of breath. So it's really fun. I've just made it sound amazing. So check it out. Hashtag Run and Rant.
And it looks way too warm there, I have to say. Kate, what about you? We've got your Twitter, and I should be saying these out loud for the podcast listeners. So Kate is at Kate Teaching. Anywhere else we can connect?
Feel free to connect with me, through my email, which is kate.stevens.ed@gmail. Would love to talk with folks.
Jeffrey.
Yeah, I've tried to go around and get Sir Thrive EDU as anywhere I could. So anywhere you can just check that out. You can go and get contact me that way. I'm also at sirthriveedu@gmail.
That was such a timely brand choice going into this year because really that captures it. And Vince, you.
You can just find me on Twitter at Vince Busta, Busta, and from there it just has a launch pad to where you can access the 2 books as well. But that's where I'm most active. So feel free to send me a DM if you have any questions or anything like that. It's the best way to find me.
As Jeffrey mentioned, I'm a little envious of the relationship you've got with Corwin and Hattie, and I can imagine all the rich conversations that have gone on there. Well, thank you to the 5 of you for such a rich and compelling conversation this morning. I know we only scratched the surface, but I think we did raise a lot of really good points and a few questions along the way, to Mark's point about more directions, more things to think about and investigate. So let's continue to reimagine professional development. Hopefully we can redeem this year and learn from it and think about ways to further the learning in our own buildings. For now, I will say take care, enjoy the rest of your Saturday, and we will talk again soon. Have a good one, everyone.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Tim.